Wherever you may be listening, however you may be listening, thank you so much for tuning in to another edition of the Cardinals on This Side podcast. For Richie Bradshaw, I am Don and Druin. Thank you so much for tuning in. I almost said the locked on intro. Thank you for making us your first listener.
We don't have it trademarked.
Yeah, I don't think Ross would appreciate that. Go and follow Richie on Twitter at RichieBrads36. Follow me on Twitter at Donnie Druin. Richie, we are officially less than 1 week removed from the trade deadline coming up. It's the most important day in our country's year, Tuesday, November 5th. Trade deadline day, obviously, a very divisive day
Is
amongst
there
so many
anything else that
Americans.
goes on in November?
I don't think so.
I don't think so
Nothing's
either.
more important.
Nothing worth mentioning, at least.
Yeah, I know, but we are going to choose to elect to speak on the Cardinals' trade possibilities today. Um, they're 4-4, Richie. A couple weeks ago, if you would have asked me, whenever they were 1-2, 1-3,
One and
like
two.
what should they do at the trade deadline? I would say they should very much hold off on being buyers whenever it comes to the deadline and potential deals. I was never on the like trade Buda Baker or trade James Conner train, but like I didn't think they should have been buyers. But winners of their last 3 out of 4, they finally got that coveted consecutive win, first time under Jonathan Gannon, first time in 3 years, I think, dating
Woo!
back to the last year of Cliff Kingsbury. Um, so much can happen, man. I mean, before we get into it, like, what's your read on where you think the Cardinals are at, and ultimately what you think they should do?
Well, I think that there's obviously 4 directions that every team can go. You can stay tight, you can make small trades, you can make a blockbuster, or you can be sellers. To me, I think the Cardinals either stay put or they buy some bargains. I don't see the Cardinals making a blockbuster.
Yeah.
I don't think right now they're going to be interested in selling off pieces. The NFC is still open
Mhm.
for a playoff spot, although it's very competitive. The entire NFC North is competing for a playoff spot. Your own division, I mean, at some point, the 49ers are going to get it figured out, more than likely. The Rams have back to back wins. Maybe they heat up. Who knows what happens with Seattle? In NFC East, the Commanders have a control of that division, but the Eagles and Cowboys can't overlook them. Like, this is a really weird conference right now to try and figure out who is going to be a true contender and who's not. The Cardinals, they're hard to predict, and this is about where we thought they would be. I think we came in saying 6 to 8 wins this year. I think they're ahead of where we thought they would be, actually, now that I think about
I
it.
would agree.
But you need to decide whether or not you think you can make a run this year, or if you're still a year, maybe 2 years away. But I don't think this is a team that's selling at the deadline right now. I think they either stay put and they roll with the roster and they see if they can get 4 more wins, 5 more wins, or they try and make a small move or 2 or 3. But I do not see the Cardinals breaking the bank for Miles Garrett or Max
Yeah.
Crosby or anything like that, which we'll talk more about later on the show.
Yeah, I think it's a very non-Monty Austin Fortin move for them to swing for the fences. That screams Steve Keim to me. And I know, like, for example, the DeAndre Hopkins trade worked out well for them. But just in terms of trying to go get a big fish, at least right now in the middle of the second year of Austin Fort's rebuild,
Doesn't
that's
make
just
sense.
not his MO. That's not what the Cardinals want to do. And I think they've been very clear and adamant about that. Obviously, I still think you have to do your due diligence whenever it comes to guys like Crosby, Miles Garrett, because to add those guys to your roster obviously would be phenomenal and it would help transform the defense almost overnight. That being said, though, I think you need, if you're Monty Austin for it, you need to have an honest conversation with yourself and say, are we starting to push into early rebuild territory into, okay, now we need to start competing? Like, have we crossed that line yet? Because if we have, you're 4-4. You are technically first in the division. There's a multi-way team tie for first at 4-4 atop the NFC West, but you're 2-0. You are undefeated in NFC West play so far. You're the
Sure
number
are.
one team. Um, Not to say there's easy games coming up because they're not, but like you have the Bears and the Jets back to back at home before you hit your bye week. you could very well be 6-4 heading into your late bye week, and like who knows how much the train can get rolling from there.
Right.
With that being said, if you want to look at it from there, can you compete? If the answer is yes, I think you do need to do something.
Yeah.
I don't think you can sit around, and then you get into the argument of, okay, well, like what can you do? What are you willing to do? Because they have plenty of cap space, they have plenty of draft ammo to make something happen.
Right.
And you look at it from that perspective, they can go get anybody. They can really go get anybody they want. Like there are no restrictions on, like we can't really afford this guy, or like we don't have the draft picks for them. Austin Fort, in theory, could go get a handful of star players to add to this team. Now, should he? Probably not. Will he? Probably not. But still, I want to get into it because we can sit here and talk about, are the Cardinals going to make a move? Are they interested in making a move? I think is the big one, because to be interested and to actually make moves at the deadline are two very different things. This is from The Athletic's Mike Jones.
Who?
Thank you. Mike Jones from The Athletic.
Did you hesitate for me to do that?
Did. No, I didn't. I on purpose, I set it up for you.
That's what I thought, dude. That's
yeah.
Fantastic. High five.
Mike Jones from The Athletic said, quote, "A high-level pass rusher can turn a good defense into a great defense, and teams with championship aspirations could look to make a move at the deadline to increase their chances of achieving their goals this postseason. NFC frontrunner Detroit needs pass rushing help with Aiden Hutchinson lost due to injury for the season. Atlanta, which leads the NFC South, also needs help at edge rusher. Arizona, which remains in the thick of things in the NFC West, love how you didn't point out they were leading the division, has also been calling teams in search of pass rushing help. Richie Bradshaw, not only did we learn Austin Fort's working the phones with less than a week to go, they know exactly what they're shopping for. They're not just poking around. They're not just seeing who's available. No. They know exactly what this team needs. And brother, with 15 sacks through their first 8 games, with an entire front seven depleted from Justin Jones to Bilal Nichols to B.J. Ojulari to Dennis Gardeck, Darius Robinson hasn't played a snap yet. You need to.
Yep. You're not gonna get to the playoffs unless you're able to generate any kind of pass rush. We can say that it's been better than we thought, but I mean, how low was that expectation? Yeah. I had a serious thought, and I'm glad they proved me wrong, that they would be 10 sacks, maybe less, because I had no expectations for this pass rush. But to the credit of not Nick Rawls.
Yeah, Rallis, Gannon.
Rallis. Oh, okay. He is our DC. I don't know why I thought he was the OC. That's Drew Petzing. To the credit of him and Jonathan Gannon, they've done a good job scheming up opportunities to get to the quarterback, but there's only so much you can do with the talent that is there. So if the Cardinals are going to make a serious run this year, or if they're just serious about moving forward as a team this year instead of trying to build for the future, you need to go out and you need to get any kind of pass rusher. You don't need to get Garrett. You don't need to get Crosby. There are certain guys that we have been beating the same drum for, Donnie Druin, for weeks, if not months now. We'll talk about later, and hopefully everyone knows exactly who we're talking about, because he's at this point he's a part of this podcast. It feels like. There are guys that you should be going for, and you know what your need is. They've identified that. That's awesome. Now you just need to make that decision.
So we've established the Cardinals are making phone calls. We know that they're looking for help in the edge rushing pass rush department. So let's go, before we talk about the guys they can get, let's use process of elimination. Let's look at a couple guys, or maybe not, like me and you had talked about before we started recording, that may be out of contention for the Cardinals. So Hassan Reddick, that was a name heavily connected to Arizona for months, man, just with his relationship with Rallis and Gannon, with their previous time in Philadelphia, the entire odd situation that happened in New York. I still don't know how that played out like it did. He's staying with the Jets at least through this year. We'll see what happens in the future, but it looks like he's going to be playing with New York for the time being. Myles Garrett was a very popular name. There were some people saying that there's an ESPN push notification today suggesting that like ESPN was breaking news that Miles Garrett was being traded to the Cardinals before it was like quickly deleted. I also saw like somebody in Phoenix edited Miles Garrett's like Wikipedia page to show he was like on the Arizona Cardinals. It was a whole thing on social media.
Interesting.
Arizona Sports' John Gambardero shot that rumor down. He said, "Hey, like there's no shot this is happening.
Good.
I would be shocked if Miles Garrett was traded from the Cleveland Browns ahead of the trade deadline." And then
Anywhere.
yeah, Josh Uche from the Patriots to the Chiefs. That's a name that was very popular amongst Cardinals fans, and perhaps rightfully so, because when you look at the price it would have taken the Cardinals to get him
Not much.
compared to the production that he possibly could have had. He's not a world beater. He's not an all pro, but he would have upgraded the room for sure. He was out to Kansas City for pennies on the dollar, right? I forget the compensation off the top of my head.
I'm not sure either. Want to say it was
then
like a 6th-round pick.
Max Crosby, who I think we disagree with a little bit. I put him on this list because I'm the one who made this. He said he wants to stick and play in Las Vegas, but Richie Bradshaw, you're telling me and the good people here that we shouldn't completely count him out of the picture.
Less than a 10%, less than a 10% chance. Okay. But there was a statement that there is a chance. There is a chance. There was a statement from Crosby that basically said, if I get dealt, I do not want to go to a team that is in a rebuild, if that's a possibility. So to me, that's teams like the 49ers, the Baltimore Ravens, the Green Bay Packers, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers that could give a call to the Raiders and say, hey, we're interested in Max Crosby. Here's our offer. And the Raiders would not only listen, but Crosby could be like, yeah, all right, I can do it. Now, again, I think that's very unrealistic right now. The Raiders do not have very many good players. I mean, Max Crosby is the Porsche that's sitting in the trailer park, that little meme. That's what he is on that team. And he means a lot to that organization, to the fans. They'd be very not wise to deal him out, even for a huge fortune that he would probably get you. As far as the Cardinals go, he says he doesn't want to go to a rebuilding team. The Cardinals are 4-4. They're contending, sort of. You would have to really sell yourself. Yeah. You would have to really oversell yourself to convince Crosby that you are definitely a contender. I mean, you're certainly closer to contending with the Cardinals than you are the Raiders, but it's a tough sell. Less than 10%, I'd probably even go less than 5% he gets dealt, period. Cardinals probably aren't even in my top 10 teams that would acquire his services, but it's out there that if it were to happen, he does not want to go to a rebuilding team.
I think you make a good argument. The Cardinals are still kind of in the midst of rebuilding, but
precisely,
if you are if you're the Cardinals and you're able to flash some dollar signs, maybe you could probably convince me otherwise.
And you can do it. That's a lot of money.
Exactly. Salary cap's only going to go up. I think they're like second or third in the NFL in like future projected cap space. Anyways, we've eliminated who they probably or can't go get, who they could go get. You alluded to him a handful of times before. Azeez Ojulari, it's just like the puzzle piece for everything. It makes sense. It's not a big move, but it's a good enough move to make an impact early on. His brother's here, BJ, who is out for the year with a torn ACL. The price tag on Ojulari,
it just went up
before his sack in the last 3 games, something like that. Something crazy.
He has 5 sacks in the last 3 games.
Yeah.
If price you made this deal a month ago, it would have been a day 3 pick.
I forgot who said it, but today's price is not yesterday's price. So we'll see if the Cardinals are at all interested in BJ. Trey Hendrickson from the Cincinnati Bengals, who I just feel like has done a very, very fine job in AFC North for such a long time. I feel like maybe doesn't get a lot of respect in terms of like the things he's able to do. Zadarius Smith, I feel like it might be like the biggest name on that list. And that's crazy whenever you see like Chase Young on that list, but Zaza's been a guy where, especially like his time in Baltimore, I just like really flashed what he was able to do. Sebastian Joseph Day, if you're looking at just like the defensive line, like a really solid piece in the interior from Tennessee. Chase Young, who's kind of like bounced around a little bit. I mean, was a top pick for a reason, had all the talent in the world, but just couldn't really find or do anything with it. Then you had another name that I actually forgot to put on this list before we started recording.
Yeah, good job, Donnie. Jadeveon Clowney is definitely someone that the Cardinals should look out for. He signed a 1-year deal with the Panthers in the offseason. He's not getting paid very much money. They have one win this year. Fun fact, they are 1-0. The Panthers are 1-0 when Clowney gets a sack in a game, which that is a 1-game sample size. But
he should do that more often.
Exactly. He's never been a hyper productive player. His career high in sacks is 9.5. He's done it twice. Most recently was a year ago with the Ravens. Like, he's still capable of being a quality pass rusher. He's not going to cost you very much, and he's a solid veteran at this point. This is his 11th season in the NFL, if you can believe it's already been that long.
That's wild.
It is wild. This is a more than quality football player. I would love this move personally. I'm still going to stand on the table and scream at the top of my lungs that Azeez Ojulari needs to be the guy they trade for. Clowney's probably my number 2. Clowney would be cheaper. It's a great like kick the tires on him kind of option, because I don't know that you extend him past this year. But if you're trying to see if you can compete this year or if you're a year away, then there's Clowney. He's going to get you through the rest of the year, and you're going to find out, are you close, or is this kind of fool's gold? Clowney is that perfect fit for you. Whereas with Azeez, I would feel the need to extend him if I traded for him. I would feel that pressure to get him under a new contract. Clowney, no, not at all. You could, but unless he just explodes with the Cardinals, and even then, you're talking about a 32-year-old player by the time next year rolls around. But if it's not Azeez, Clowney is one of my favorites, and honestly, I think Clowney makes the most sense out of anybody on this list.
Well, I was gonna ask you. That was gonna be my next and final question to kind of wrap the show up. Out of this list of people, including the unlisted Clowney, I'll give you 2 options. Option 1, you're Monty.
Okay.
Who are you trying to get? And then option 2, who do you think they will end up getting? Because I feel like those are 2 different answers at this point in time.
It is. It is definitely 2 different answers. And that's the problem, is what I would do is not what Monty would do. Because what I would do is I would go in on getting Azeez. I've already said on the show, I will reiterate, it is a mistake that you did not make that trade sooner, because the price just went up on him. It's not going to be as cheap as it was before, because a guy that we've seen production from in the past has been placed back into the starting lineup because Kayvon Thibodeau is on injured reserve. And, well, look at that. Azeez Ojulari is still pretty damn good at football. They should have made that move sooner. The price is up. I don't know if that's within the realm of possibilities. If I am Monty Ossenfort, I'm going bargain bin shopping. I am not trying to give up a ton of capital. I take a look at Clowney, but I also think that Trey Hendrickson is a super realistic possibility for the team. He is also ridiculously productive. He's on the last year of his contract. Same thing as Clowney. You can re-sign him if you want, or kick the tires on him. He's in his 30s, but he's been double-digit sacks for, I think, 4 of the last 6 years, pending this season, something like that. I mean, he's a sack master. He's still really good at football. So if he balls out, yeah, you re-sign him. Give him a 2-3 year deal. If not, okay, you're out a day 3 pick, because Cincinnati's not going to get a lot for him because he doesn't want to be there at this point. He's expressed that he wants a new contract. Cincinnati's
he requested a trade
probably
last
not going to give him that.
Didn't he?
What's that?
He requested a trade last offseason, didn't he?
Yeah. He requested a trade, and T. Higgins requested a trade because the Bengals were not going to give them extensions. And unfortunately, they lost that game of hardball, and they had to play this year. So Hendrickson is probably looking for a new home. And it makes a lot of sense, in my opinion, for the Cardinals to go after him. You don't have to pay much, and he's the not even kind of. He is far and away the most productive player on this list. I I would think it would be between Clowney and Hendrickson. If you're Monty, it depends on the price. I'm still all in on Ojulari, man, and I will not back off of that because I think that he's good now. You give him an extension, and he's one of your key pass rushers for the future.
Yeah, I would not obviously hit the Ojulari pickup. I think right now as it stands, I definitely think if we're ranking them on realistic possibilities, Ojulari's got to be number one, if not number two. Um, I'm not so sure about Joseph Day, Smith, Young, Clowney, maybe.
I don't think Young is. I don't think he's a possibility at all.
No.
So I just he doesn't feel like a Cardinals player. He's been incredibly underwhelming his whole career, and it's a name at this point. Like, he's the former number 2 overall pick. That's great. How long did it take for him to sign in free agency with the Saints? It took a minute, and this is a guy who's 25, 26 years old. I just don't think that that's someone the Cardinals are interested in. If they were, then he would have been signed in the offseason because he sat on the market for a few months. So
You know, that's
I don't think the
that's a fair
Cardinals are in on
assessment
him.
because there were a lot of people banging the drum for Yannick Ngakoue to come here.
Yeah.
Like after the season started, it's like, look, like if they wanted him, they could have got
Then they
him
would have done
months
it.
ago. They clearly did not want him. So
Yep.
and like this is a Cardinals pass rush unit, Richie, that it was very thin and weak to start with everybody healthy.
It was thin in the
Let's forget
offseason.
about the injuries for a minute. Yeah, it was
It was thin in
depleted
the
room before
offseason.
they went into it. Yeah.
Right. And they didn't sign Young. They didn't sign Ngakoue. They didn't make a trade for Trey Hendrickson or Hassan Reddick or anyone like that. They rolled with what they have. And it's different now that you're trying to compete, but it makes a little more sense for Hendrickson since he's still a really good football player. I wouldn't say he's in his prime, but he's not that far out of it. Chase Young doesn't have a prime at this point. And it's really unfortunate because, fun fact, that to me is the best player coming out of college on the defensive side of the football I've ever seen. And I don't know how many guys are going to pass him. It's really unfortunate that he had to drop his nickname of the Predator, which was totally badass, especially because of his dreads. I don't know if you ever saw someone did an edit of him as the Predator and everything, and the dreads, and dude, it was
I
amazing.
might have seen it, yeah.
So, but obviously that's not necessarily a nickname that's very popular today.
I would not want to be
reason.
called a predator today.
No, and totally understandable. But back to the point at hand, he hasn't developed, and it's not someone that I think the Cardinals are interested in, and it's not someone I think the Cardinals should be interested in. I would much rather you make a move for a veteran, a 30-year-old or older veteran that can help a young locker room out than a 25, 26-year-old who you know what he is, and he's not getting any better.
That is fair. All right, before we go, trade deadline is Tuesday. Nothing else crazy important that day that I can think of off the top of my head. If you had to guess right now, who do the Cardinals trade for?
You know what? I'll go balls to the wall, and I'll say Trey Hendrickson.
Okay. I know the Cardinals use a lot of resources. They use the term turning over stones every single time we ask them about something. I think there's going to be a lot of good, positive opinions about Azeez Ojulari. I don't think the price tag is going to be crazy high. And like you said, it's not only a move for now,
I'm
but also
manifesting
potentially
it.
for the future as well. If I had to guess, obviously we don't have inside info. I would go Ojulari.
If they trade for Azeez Ojulari, I will buy a jersey. I am so in on him, Donnie. I've been in on him since he came into the league. Don't get me wrong, I wasn't to the point where I was like, oh, he's going to be one of the best pass rushers in football. I've always looked at him as like, that's a really good contributor. And he's been a good contributor. He had 6 or 7 sacks in his second year in the league. It might have even been his first year. And then this year, he comes off the bench for Thibodeau. That's not an easy guy to step up for.
Yeah.
5 sacks in the last 3 games. He's got 6 on the year, which ties his career high. As far as I know, it might be 7, but I'm pretty sure it's 6. He's really, really good. He's young, he's productive, and I just love his fit in this defense. I believe if you put him in this defense, I think he can match what he has in New York right now with 6 sacks. I think he can finish the year with 12.
Wow.
I stand by that. If they trade for Azeez Ojulari, I will buy a jersey. I am so in on Azeez Ojulari. I am begging the Cardinals to do it. I'd do a cartwheel. I would probably break my ankles
Okay,
doing it.
I'm going to stop you before you start promising all this crazy stuff. Anything else
Tattoo
before we
him
get
on
out
my
of here?
face. Full on mural.
Anything else before we get out of here?
I don't think so. So all in on Azeez. My prediction is Trey Hendrickson. I think the most realistic move is probably Jadeveon Clowney.
Okay. All right.
Don't expect Max Crosby.
Yeah, or Myles Garrett. We'll see though. It's the NFL. I feel like the NFL trade deadline is slowly but surely become more of like an event every
Yeah,
year.
the
When
last few years,
it used to be a
dude,
snooze
10
fest.
years ago, nothing happened.
Yep.
Like it just came by. Like it's hard to compete with like the NBA when it comes to trade deadline.
So
And I
tough.
don't know if anything ever will compare to it. The NFL the last 4 to 5 years, they're understanding like there's money to be made if
Yep.
we start moving guys around. And the NFL loves their money.
NFL does
So
love their money, man.
they sure do. So I think you're going to see 1 or 2 big moves. I don't think there's blockbuster moves. I don't think a Roquan Smith is getting traded this year, but I do think that there's some possibilities for some fun players to be moved, and I'm hoping the Cardinals can get at least 1 pass rusher. Donnie, I'll tell you what, if you got Sebastian Joseph Day and Jadeveon Clowney, I'd give you an A. I'd give you an A+ on that.
I would
And
love that.
especially because you're not giving up a ton. So I'm all in on bargain shopping. If you go with Z's, unfortunately, you're probably giving up a quality day 3 pick. In a best case scenario, maybe it's a pick swap. You can give them a 4th and you get a 6th back or something. I don't know. I'm not a GM, but his price is going to be significantly higher than what it was. I think there's bargains to be had here, though.
Perfectly said, my man. Well, to tune into everything, you can tune into sl.com/NFL/Cardinals for all of the trade deadline and just Cardinals news in general. I mean, we're still playing games. They host the Bears on Sunday at State Farm Stadium. So
Long
stay
season.
tuned to that. Follow Richie on Twitter at RichieBrads36. Follow me on Twitter at Donnie Jerome. And until next time, see y'all.